fellow strangers and story lovers, and welcome to my lair. Today we're talking about The Gilded Wolves by Chokshi Roshani. Sorry if I butchered the name. It's the first book in the Gilded Wolves saga. So to change the usual setup, I will actually have a spoiler-free section in this review, and then I will have a spoiler zone where I will spoil absolutely everything. Do not fret though, I will let you know when to leave if you want to preserve yourself the surprise of the story. You are safe here. The story takes place in Paris in 1889, where we follow our main character Severin, who is the heir of one of the big houses in Paris, House Vente. Only House Vente has been discarded, so he now basically lost everything except a very cool luxurious hotel called L'Eden, where he lives with a band of miscreants who help him steal ancient artifacts that were mostly connected to his older house and the order it belonged to. So why did I decide to read this book? I didn't. I read it for a book club and I have opinions. It's 1889. The city is on the cusp of industry and power, and the Exposition Universelle has breathed new life into the streets and dredged up ancient secrets. Here, no one keeps tabs on dark truth better than treasure hunter and wealthy hotelier Severin Montagnier-Alary. When the elite, ever-powerful Order of Babel, coerces him to help them on a mission, Severin is offered a treasure that he never imagined, his true inheritance. To hunt down the ancient artifact the Order seeks, Severin calls upon a band of unlikely experts. An engineer with a debt to pay, a historian banished from his home, a dancer with a sinister past, and a brother in arms if not blood. Together, they will join Severin as he explores the dark, glittering heart of Paris. What they find might change the course of history, but only if they can stay alive. So, did I like this book? No. Did I dislike it? Also no. All in all, I'd give it a big fat 5 out of 10, as in, I didn't really care, but I've also seen worse. So when I start raging about some parts of it, please remember that I didn't actually hate it. I just have a lot of anger in me that I like to express. But let's start with the positive, shall we? Forging. There's a form of magic in this book that's called forging, and it basically enables people to enchant objects with specific properties. For example, there's a forged desk that will stab anyone other than the owner that touches it. I felt like it was a pretty cool concept that allowed for quite a lot of interesting development, but also really helped the world stand out and feel more unique. I felt like it also worked really well with some of the luxurious settings that the book offers, because it really helped them feel a bit more, elevated, pretty even. It made it feel a bit more magical in a way, if that makes sense. I also really liked the style of the writing. I thought it was really pretty with amazing descriptions that just really helped the luxurious settings once again. Like, it just, when the author went and started describing some really nice places, there were a lot of really pretty words and like the descriptions, and I thought that was really nice. And honestly, there were a few times where there were some phrasing that I was quite jealous of, and I was like, damn, I wish I could write like that. I would say the third positive point that I can think of when I think of this book is some of the characters, mainly Enrique, Hypnos, and Zofia. They were an absolute delight. They were pretty fun, cool in their own right. Borderline comic relief, but that's kind of my vibe. I do like a good comic relief, especially when you can take them seriously and they're not just absolutely destroyed by the plot and ridiculed every chance they get, which was not the case with these guys. Like, they do get made fun of once in a while, especially Enrique, but it's never to the point that you can't take them seriously, and I do like that in my comic relief. So yeah, the points for them. And last but not least, I felt like it was a fun read. It was a fun adventure. It was never painful getting to read it. I was never like, I don't really want to read it. I did have fun. I did have a good time, if not for all the little points that I will mention next. First off, Severin and Laila. Not a fan. Basically, Severin is a broody mess whose intellect varies based on what the plot requires, and he's always right. Unless, of course, he disagrees with Laila, in which case she is. She is smoking hot and absolutely perfect in every way. The story will bend over backwards to make sure we, the reader, know that she is cool and hot and skilled and unique and talented and right and correct, and it gets tiring very fast. Like, she not only has a super unique power that no one else in the world has, she's also a very mysterious dancer in one of the most sought-after mysterious cabaret of Paris, Le Palais des Rêves. But that's not enough. She's also the best baker there ever was, who makes the best and prettiest looking cake ever. And she's always right. And then I mentioned she's hot. And of course they are involved in a very painful love story that had me roll my eyes and puff a heavy sigh out of my nostril every 2 pages. And while I understand what he sees in her, you know, she's hot, I'm still not quite sure what she sees in him, because it's never properly explained, and the best that I could get to an explanation is she likes that he thinks she's hot. Prove me wrong. What else in the book explains what she sees in him? I'm waiting. This line that I'm about to read is the first time that I got any explanation as to why she liked him. She'd cornered him in his study, more intoxicated by the way he'd looked at her than she had been by the champagne. Yeah, and that's basically the first thing I've read, and after that it's only like, oh, he was looking at her in this way and she thought it was really cool, and she was so into the fact that he was looking at her and clearly thinking she was hot, but there's never a moment where she's like, oh my god, he's so cool, he's so hot, I like how nice he is. No, it's always about how he sees her, and at some point I'm just like, I want to see what you like about the guy. Like, I'm not saying that he doesn't have any qualities that other people see in him throughout the story. Like, clearly he's kind of cool and mysterious. He is good looking. It is mentioned a few times. But she doesn't really mention that. And look, I love it when characters are hot. I love it when it's pointed out. Yes, please remind me how hot and stunning the characters are. I love that. But can we just stop making them the best thing at everything they've tried once in their life? Please? Thank you. A second thing that really annoyed me in this book was the banter. Now, no, stop, don't complain yet. Don't get me wrong. I love a good banter. I live for a good banter in my stories, okay? It gives me life. But it can be done well or not, and honestly, in this book, I felt like it was hit or miss. Like, the characters were bantering over stupid things in the middle of a life or death situation, and that can be done right as well, you know, like, they're stressing out, they say a stupid thing, their friends call them out on it, it can be fun, it can work. But here I always felt like it was taking away from the danger of the situation to the point that it got really hard to take anything seriously. Honestly, at some point when they were in a stressful, dangerous situation, all I could think of was like, no clever jokes, guy. Come on, I thought you were wittier than that. There were a few times where the dialogue felt really forced, and then you realize that it's just to cram a very clever punchline at the end. I was just like, And the last point that I kind of want to mention in the things that annoy me was what I would call the sentence for the trailer. There were so many of them, like, you know, clever sentences on their characters' perspectives and life experience that felt like they wanted to be on a shirt or in the trailer for the movie. To me, it got old really fast, it made me roll my eyes. It just kept taking me out of the story because I felt more that the story was looking at itself and praising itself for being so clever, and it's just not my thing. And in that, I felt like Laila was the worst offender, which is another reason why she annoyed me so much. Let me give you a few examples. Because, my dear, we are without armor, and beauty is its own armor. Trust me. Tristan, my love, if you get in the way of a woman's battle, you'll get in the way of her sword. And it's not that they're bad quotes in themselves, they just never felt natural in the realm of the story to me. It just felt like the story was being put on hold just so the character could sound cool and deep for a second. And at the end of the day, I think it's what annoyed me the most in the story. For all Severin and Laila really annoyed me and pissed me off to no measure. I feel like I could just really see all the narrative strings behind it, and it just kept taking me out of the story. When I read a story, I want to be sucked into the adventure, I want to enjoy it, I want to be there with the characters. But when I see the puppet master pulling the narrative strings everywhere to see how they're trying to make me feel certain thing and how they're constantly patting themselves on their back for how funny and clever they are, it just takes me out of it and I don't like it. I think, if anything, this book made me really appreciate some piece of writing advice that I hate, but I know in my heart is absolutely true, and that is kill your darlings. As in, there are some scenes, some sentences that you love so much, but your story is actually better without them, and you do need to delete them, no matter how much it hurts. And I feel like this author had some really cool scenes and really cool punchlines and clever joke that did not fit in the story, and instead of deleting them, she just squished them in the story. And that's how it feels like to me. Like cool scenes that don't belong in the story. Overall, I still feel like it was an easy read and I enjoyed most of my time reading it. I had a lot of times where I was groaning and like sighing and being exasperated by some of the characters, but at no point did I consider stopping and not reading the book anymore. And to be honest, I will probably read the sequels as well. Probably mostly for the sake of the channel and reviewing them. I think if not for that, I would probably just drop it, but I'm curious and I think it would be interesting to see where it goes together. And yeah, while I probably wouldn't read the next books if not for the reviews, the thought of reading them is not a pain, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, you are now walking in spoiler territories, so if you don't want to be spoiled, leave now and don't come back. But please leave a like. Please. Okay, so now that the people who don't want to be spoiled have left us, let's recap the story, shall we? So the story starts with a heist. Enrique and Severin are at an auction where they are trying to steal an item. I think it was a compass with a map inside, but I may be wrong. So we're starting off well enough with quite a lot of tension and explanations on what forging is. Although, if I can already put a little bit of a minus here, when I say information on what forging is, I mean infodump. But anyway, Enrique and Severin are trying to steal that compass by replacing it with a fake one, but one of the forged, so enchanted, statue realizes that the compass is a fake and it bites Severin and he bleeds into the statue, and basically it's a terrible situation. He's trapped, he cannot move, and the guards are probably going to be alerted. And so they're probably going to be found in the middle of this room as thieves, so very bad situation. So it's exciting, isn't it? Like tension, mystery, adventure. However are they going to make it out of this situation? But you see, this is actually where the book starts another trend that frustrated me incredibly. Not as much as Severin and Laila's romance, but still. This book has a little bit of a tendency of skipping some of the most interesting moments, like moments of tension where all seems lost, and the next time you see the characters, they're just like, no, yeah, it's fine. And you get a bit of a half-assed explanation as to how they managed to make it out with no problem. But I want to see it. I don't want to just be told. Like, why would you build a good scene of tension to just, like, skip it and just be like, oh, by the way, something cool happened here. You don't get to see it, but, look, Layla's hot. Not all the time, mind you, but there were just a few times, enough time that I noticed and I was frustrated because I was genuinely excited to see what would happen to the character and how they would make it out alive. And then the next time you see them, they're just walking back home, bantering. So the next time you see Enrique and Severin after that, it's chill. Enrique found the failsafe to turn off the forged statue and now everything's okay. All good. Thanks, I love skipping the exciting parts of a book. Anyway, Severin then breaks the compass that reveals, I think, if I remember correctly, like a coded map that is supposed to guide them to an object called the Aurous Eye, which is supposed to guide them to another item that's called a Babel fragment. Babel. Anyway. All you need to know is that it's kind of the MacGuffin of the day. Severin receives a letter from a man called Hypnos, who is more or less the person he stole the compass from. And a weird thing that is pointed out about the letter is that there are like little stains on it, like little droplets of blood. And then when Severin opens the letter, he like gets a cut on his finger and he bleeds on the letter, which reveals the content of the letter, which is more or less along the lines of, I know you stole from me. Meet me at my house this evening. And, you know, it's still early in the book, so I don't have the strongest grasp yet of what forging is, you know, despite the constant exposition dump. But even I can pick up on the fact that there's, you know, blood on the letter before Severin cuts his finger and bleeds on it. So it is someone else's blood, not yours, Severin. So someone else must have been pricked by the same forged envelope. So, you know, the letter says, I know you stole from me. This letter has been passed to a few other people. Do you know where I'm getting at with this? Like, ring the alarm bell. This is obviously a trap. He doesn't know it's you. Anyway, Severin goes with Enrique to Hypnos' house to out himself as the thief. Because, you know, he's the smart character. And he makes sure on the way to warn Enrique about Hypnos' illusions. Like, you know, the guy is an illusionist and Severin warns Enrique about it. Please take note of that. And when they arrive, Hypnos reveals that he sent letters to all the people he suspected of being the thief. He basically used the blood that he collected from the scene of the robbery to enchant the letter to react only to the blood of the person who was the thief, so the blood that was found on the scene of the crime. So only the blood of the actual thief would display the content of the letter. In other words, only the thief could read the content of the letter and the invitation, so only the thief would show up at Hypnos' house. In other words, Severin, the clever guy of the story, outed himself as the thief. In a shocking turn of event that even I saw coming, despite not knowing how forging really works. And don't get me wrong, I think it's a very clever plan on Hypnos' part. But this is what I mean when I say that Severin's intelligence just varies on what the plot needs. Like, he's supposed to be the clever guy. How did he not see this coming? Like, one time he's going to make those leaps of logic that no human being could make. And then some other times he's going to walk straight into the most obvious traps and be so dumb when even I can predict them, even though I've barely just arrived into this world. Anyway, Hypnos tells Severin that he wants to hire him to find the Aurous Eye Otherwise, he will tell the police that Severin robbed him, and Severin refuses because, I don't know. So Hypnos changes tactics, and he shows him a vision of his friends Laila, Tristan, and Zofia being held hostage, and he tells Severin that if he refuses his offer, he's going to get them killed. He's known for his illusions, said Severin, interrupting his thoughts. Focus on one thing, and don't lose yourself in his tricks. Jeez, thanks, Severin. How about you take your own advice sometimes? So, of course, Severin never considers it could be a trap. He accepts the deal and is then very surprised later when he realizes that his friends were never in danger. And, you know, I'm obviously not against him falling for the trick, but it would have been nice for him to at least consider the possibility that it was an illusion and just deciding that it's not worth risking his friend's life on the possibility that it's an illusion. I don't know anything, because right now I'm just not convinced Severin is the mastermind he's built up to be. But at least Hypnos offered Severin that he would let him take the test to see if he is a legitimate heir of House Vonth again, a test that he failed in his past because allegedly it was rigged against him. So now he may have, if he helps Hypnos, the possibility to take that test again and prove that he is in fact the legitimate heir of House Vonth, which is a pretty sweet deal if you ask me. Like, you get the opportunity to hang out with Hypnos, and in exchange of that, you get to regain everything you've ever lost. I think it's fair. Oh, and before we leave this scene for good, Hypnos and Enrique find each other hot. I don't know if it's going to bring anything other than cheap drama at the end of book 1 or not, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, Enrique and Severin go back to l'Eden, where unsurprisingly everyone is fine. They begrudgingly start working for Hypnos. Tristan, Severin's young adopted brother, is very, very, very against that idea for some reason. I don't know why. He just didn't feel like doing that. So they start preparing for the heist. Hypnos starts hanging out with them and he tries to make friends, and he's actually a pretty sweet boy. Like, you know, he's funny, he's fabulous, and he really just wants to, like, hang out with them and make friends. But Tristan doesn't like him because he got up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, and I don't know, typical Tristan nonsense. And now is the moment that I have to admit that I don't actually remember that much of the heists themselves because none of it made any sense to me. They have a first scene where they're supposed to, like, get a coin from somewhere, and I don't know. There's this one scene where they actually repeat the plan twice. Like, I kid you not. Twice in a row, they repeat the plan. And the next scene, Laila is inside a cake. 3 weeks ago, she'd ruined a cake. Severin, perhaps trying to console her, or more likely get her out of his study, had said, "It's just cake. It's not like there's anything valuable inside it." "Oh, really?" she had demanded. She'd baked his favorite snake seal into a fruit tart and left it on his desk with a note, "You're wrong." Yeah, and after that, she's in a cake as part of the infiltration, and look, I don't know. I'll follow the banter, I'll follow the romance, but this... I'm tired. Look, let's just skip through some of it and reshuffle it magically. You can let me know down in the comments how the plan actually goes, and I'll probably pin your comment up, so if you have the right, correct explanation as to what happened, other people can read it. But yeah, from here on, I'll just fudge it because honestly, I can't. They have to steal something from somewhere. And at some point, they have to infiltrate one of the big houses and steal something from there, and Hypnos gives them fake identities. Laila is dressed as a maid to get inside, but at some point she still needs to get inside a cake. Don't ask me. But then someone puts the cake against a wall, and that's just where the trap door is, so Laila can't get out of the cake because, you know, if I'm carrying around a beautiful frosted cake, my first instinct is also to smoosh it all over the wall of a very expensive library. I said don't ask me. And because she struggles to get out of the cake, she's too late to give Severin a key that she was supposed to give him. So her only option at this point is to go on a stage dressed as a dancer to perform a dance, and whilst she does that, she will throw the key to Severin because we need to show for the 100th time that Laila is hot and clever and witty. So she gets on stage, and because she is such a good dancer, she asks the musicians to make the music faster. "Jati Swarim," she said, "but increase the tempo." One of the musicians raised an eyebrow. "It's already fast." She narrowed her eyes. "You think I don't know that?" Honestly, the audacity of this guy not knowing she's a main character. After that, we get a scene of Severin appreciating the dance, and we get to that scene that I mentioned later, where we finally understand what Laila sees in Severin. She likes that he thinks she's hot. And I know I've read this already, but I feel like I have to read it again. She cornered him in his study, more intoxicated by the way he looked at her than she had been from the champagne. And I'm not joking, this is the first time we get the vaguest clue as to what she sees in him. But honestly, tell me how else I'm supposed to understand this. And we know what he sees in her, like, constantly. He's always going on about how she's hot and has sugar in her hair. And it's not much, you know, for people who have been pining for each other for years, but at least we know. For her, I legitimately had no clue what she saw in him before this. Like, this is the first hint we have as to what she appreciates in him. And it's the fact that she enjoys watching him hot and bothered because of her quick dancing. But anyway, she throws Severin the key whilst dancing quickly. And so now, with the key, Severin can finally go in the library where the object they're looking for is. And he very cleverly deduced that the library is underground because at some point he notices that the hostess of the party had mud under her shoes. And despite Severin having the key, Enrique, Zofia, and Laila still have to solve a puzzle to go into the vault that's in the library. And once they solve the puzzle, Severin and Hypnos casually walk in to find them. Yeah, I'm lost, but let's just keep it rolling. And then they finally find the object that they were looking for, and then they get attacked. They get attacked by the bad guy, whose name is sorry, his name is the bad guy whose name is Rougeaubert. That's what we're calling our bad guy today. So the bad guy's name is Rougeaubert. Because that's a name I can take seriously. So Rougeaubert, who wants to revive the fallen house. It's like the fallen house who has fallen from graces because they wanted to become gods or something. Rougeaubert. 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 So yes, another house has fallen from graces, And yes, they're trying to come back. So yes, a bit like Severin, but different. So Rouge Rouge So Rouge So the bad guy reveals to the team that Tristan betrayed them. Not Severin's baby brother Tristan? Yes, he has. I'm still not quite sure how, when, and where, but he has. And then he gets captured, and then they have to save him from the catacombs. Catacombs. I think. Jesus, I read this book a few weeks ago, and I took notes, and I still can't remember what happened. So they go to the catacombs, and Severin tries to free Tristan, but then he gets captured because it was a trap. And then Tristan takes Laila hostage for some reason, but then he changes his mind and betrays Rouge-Oubert. And then they all get surrounded by people from the fallen house, and there's this guy who's called the Doctor, who's probably the main villain. And yes, he's like meaner, badder guy than Rouge-Oubert, and thank God, because I don't know how many times I can say Rouge-Oubert without dying from laughter. But then ultimately the good guys win, Rouge-Oubert gets arrested, and all's well that ends well. Or is it? Because then there is a party at the Palais des Rêves and everyone is invited. Severin gets a letter that says, "Read this, urgent," and he thinks, this can wait. They're all celebrating and everything is nice, and Severin decides that this is a good time to read that letter now. And it says, "Don't go outside. Rouge-Oubert escaped and he's probably gonna try to kill you and your friends." So Rouge-Oubert appears and kills Tristan. Well, good thing Severin is super clever. And after that, it's just drama unfolding. Severin is all depressed and sad because he lost his baby brother. Because yes, at the sweet age of 16, let's not forget that Tristan is like such a little baby compared to the rest of them who are, I think, a whole year older than he was. So Severin is really sad and lost, and he refuses to take the test to establish whether or not he is the legitimate heir of House Vanth, and he also tells Laila to f*** off when she tries to kiss him. To be fair to him, she did have the worst timing. Like, you know, maybe let the guy grieve a bit before you jump on him and try to kiss him. Personally, I also don't think I would want to get to first base after my baby brother died. But he's in such a state of shock and he just wants her to back off. And so he tells her something really, really hurtful. He tells her she's not real. Which is actually quite a dick move on his part, because at some point in the story we discovered that Laila has been forged when she was a kid, and because of that, her father, for some reason, believed that she was a monster, and he used to tell her that she was unreal, and it really, really hurt her and traumatized her. So Severin telling her that now, yeah, super not cool. So they stop talking after that. Oh, and Enrique and Hypnos also kiss at some point at the end, and you'd think this is a happy moment, but no, because it's the end and we need a drama. Because Enrique and Zofia at some point also start being like a maybe will they, won't they, and so of course Zofia sees Enrique and Hypnos kiss at the end, and then she gets all mopey and depressed. And right at the end we get a teasing for next book's trope. I mean plot. When Laila comes to Severin after months of not talking to tell him that for their next heist they'll have to pretend to be lovers. So yeah, book 1 finishes with Tristan being dead, Severin being depressed, Laila being pissed off, and the love triangle of sadness. Everyone is miserable, but we have our tropes set up for the next book. So, well done. And now let's talk about the characters. So let's start with Severin. As I've mentioned multiple times, Severin, not a fan. Honestly, I liked him a lot at first, the first few scenes, because, well, he is cool and collected and smart and witty, but the problem is, one of the problem is he's very inconsistent. So one time he's going to make like these crazy leaps of logics that no human being could have made, or he's going to do something completely stupid and irrational that the book is going to frame as being clever and thinking outside the box. Like twice in this book, he breaks a really rare and ancient artifact because if we haven't found anything in its current form, we need to study it in a different form. Which to me is a very backwards way of thinking, but of course it works. It's brilliant luck that the artifact broke in the exact way you needed it to reveal what you needed it to, but yeah, it worked. And honestly, I'm not opposed to sheer luck being the reason why something gets accomplished in a story, but when it's framed as genius, I'm a bit annoyed. And he also has these moments of sheer stupidity because the plot demands it. And I'm sorry, but this guy who's framed as like this brilliant, very clever guy should have known better. He's very broody, which gets old at some point, especially when it comes to his romance with Laila. Like, they spent this one night together, and then after that, they decided it can't happen again because they both have these very important things that they want to pursue and goals they want to accomplish, and they don't want a romance to get between them and their goals. But then they keep being like so haunted by this one night and they keep thinking about it. And I don't know, at some point I'm just like, well then stop dilly-dallying, go for it. You're the only one putting restrictions on yourself. I mean, their goals aren't incompatible. Why do they feel like they can't be together? I'm sorry, guys, like a romance is not a full-time job. You can do other things on the side. It just feels like it's for the sake of drama rather than any good plot reason, and just because we want to have this trope of the main characters pining for each other, which again joins my point of like just seeing the story strings and tropes everywhere and just like really being hard to focus on the story with all of these story elements being so obvious. I feel like a story sometimes really benefit from taking a step back and looking at itself, because if you do that you realize that your star-crossed lovers who are so crushed by the weight of their fate and the responsibility that they have that can't be together, you realize that really they are just two emo teenagers who think they have too much responsibility to bang. And I do love a story that takes itself seriously. And I hate stories who constantly cancel their own emotional weight with jokes. But there is a middle ground that needs to be found. Like, yes, take yourself seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously, if that makes sense. And now let's talk about Laila. 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 I have very similar feelings for Laila than I do for Severin, except for her it's a bit worse because she is more clever, she is more hot, she is more correct, she is more everything. There really isn't one thing that she gets wrong. When Severin is wrong, generally is because he disagrees with Laila, and Laila needs to be always 100% right. By day, she is the best baker there ever was and ever will be. By night, she is this very sexy and mysterious dancer at the most sought-after cabaret in Paris. She has a unique power, she is so hot. But she does have a motherly aspect that I genuinely like about her. There were a few scenes where I was thinking, okay, that is cute. There is one moment where she prepares a set of dresses for Zofia and she adds cute little explanations with them, like this one is comfortable, this one is easy to put on, and this one has a lot of colors that you can count if you get stressed out. And that was so adorable because it shows that she knows the people around her, she knows how to make them comfortable, and she's going to try and make them comfortable with what she knows about them. Also, when Tristan gets captured, she decides to care for his pet spider that he really loves, and it's well established that she doesn't love the pet spider, so it was really cute. And yeah, I like that aspect of her because it made her feel more human, much more than her, like, hot and mysterious perfect woman shtick that she had going on and that I really didn't care about. Now let's talk about Enrique. I liked Enrique. He's very fun and he gives those comic relief vibes that I really like. And I wish more comic reliefs were taken a bit more seriously like he is, because honestly, who doesn't like to laugh? He can be a little awkward sometimes, which was very endearing. He's often the butt of the joke, I think, but he still felt respected enough overall that it wasn't painful. Like, for example, he's a historian, and the two scenes that I mentioned earlier with Severin destroying really rare ancient artifacts, it's always a scene where Enrique is like observing it and he gets absolutely horrified that Severin destroys it. Hilarious, I know. He also makes a few jokes that makes him come across as a little bit arrogant, so people make some jokes at his expense to put him back in his place and blah 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 fun stuff. And I guess the reason I ended up liking him is because of his like kind of comic relief vibe. He wasn't taken as seriously as Severin and Laila, so I don't know, I liked him more for that, and I think the same goes for Zofia and Hypnos. Speaking of which, let's talk about Zofia. I like Zofia. She's cool. She's portrayed as being on the autistic spectrum, I think. She doesn't understand most of the jokes and she takes things very literally, which makes for a lot of the jokes when it comes to her. And I don't mean at her expense, like sometimes like the joke is that, oh, she doesn't really get it, so she's going to say something funny on top of that, but I don't have any examples. At first, her and Enrique don't really get along because he makes a lot of jokes all the time, and because she doesn't understand jokes, she doesn't really understand him that well. But then they start solving some puzzles together, which you would assume they would have done earlier because they've been working together for a long time, but apparently they've never worked together. But yeah, they start solving puzzles together, they make a good team. He tells her he likes the way she thinks and he sees her in a pretty dress, and they start pining for each other after that. I like their friendship more than I like their romance, mostly because I felt like their romance was more of an excuse for drama right at the end when, like in the best sitcoms the 90s had to offer, she just comes in and sees Enrique kiss Hypnos. Or the other way around is actually more accurate. And she just goes all sad like, boo-hoo, I guess I'm just not made to interact with people, and she just like closes up completely. As if this ending did not have enough drama. But now let's talk about Hypnos. Hypnos is a king and a genuine ray of sunshine. He is fabulous and he made me laugh with bangers such as, "Oh no, shiny things, my weakness." Well, on Wednesday we sacrifice a cat to Satan. But first, where's the wine? I can't discuss the end of civilization without wine. Bro. Same. Then again, he also has a couple jokes that should be illegal. Are you serious? I'm Hypnos. He's cool though, and I find very easy to like. It's very clear very quickly that he just likes being around the other characters and he just wants to make friends with them and he likes hanging out. He feels so much joy when they just joke around together. It is so precious. The guy just feels like he's living his best life with them. Which makes it all the more frustrating when Severin and Tristan start raining on his parade with like Tristan just not liking him for whatever reason. And then when Severin is like, oh, I need to make Tristan comfortable by making sure Hypnos is uncomfortable. Like, guys, just take your brooding somewhere else, okay? I'm trying to have a good time with Hypnos here. And last and least, Tristan, the little baby of the group. He is like 16 and the other ones are like 17. How small. But I guess he does act more like a 10-year-old or something. Jokes aside, I say that the others are 17. I'm not sure if that's correct. That just comes from an assumption I made, because at some point it is said that Laila will die when she turns 18, which means that, you know, because of the whole she was forged, who cares? So I just assumed that she was 17 based on that alone, and based on that alone I also assumed that the others were 17 as well. Yeah, honestly, I didn't really like Tristan. I kind of liked him at first because I thought that his inability to compute that other people didn't like his pet spider was kind of precious. But then he's just a bit useless and uninteresting. From the get-go, he just decided to hate Hypnos, and I'm still not sure why. And after that, it was just kind of hard for me to like him. He also just becomes bizarrely irrelevant at some point in the book until he's not. And that's fine, like, not every character needs to be super important, but I don't know, I guess his main point was to die to get Severin mad and sad. And because I didn't like Severin that much either, when Tristan died, I was just kind of like, oh, I didn't think he'd die. But I wasn't sad. Then again, I'm not even sure why I made a specific part for him. I guess because I just didn't know where else to talk about him. But at the end, he didn't even feel really like a main character. He felt more like baggage that came with Severin. But I think I've rambled enough, and I've managed to say everything that I had on my chest. Overall, I didn't hate the book, but I felt like it took itself a bit too seriously to my liking, and I could see the plot strings a bit too much, and kill your darlings, my dears. Anyway, that's it for the Gilded Wolves. Leave a like if you like the video, subscribe if you want to see more of my face. Thanks for tuning in, and continue to enjoy stories.